Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. So, in this recording, teacher akan record untuk kelas kita pada 22 Jun 2021. Sambungan daripada kelas kita last week. Jadi, hari ini kita akan merangkumi learning standard construct untuk Boxplot. And then kita nak tengok bagaimana kita analisis data. And then finally, satu soalan about solving problems. Okay, so without further ado, kita akan start. So the first learning standard untuk hari ini, kita akan pergi kepada students must know how to construct and interpret a box plot for a set of group data. So Boxplot kita dah cover dalam tingkatan 4, measures of dispersion tingkatan 4, Boxplot. So siapa yang terlupa, so Boxplot titik di sini adalah untuk kita punya minimum value dan titik sebelah sini adalah maximum value. So titik sini tengah-tengah ni adalah the first quartile. Tengah-tengah adalah median. Ini adalah third quartile kita. Okay. So, ini adalah box plot di mana kita construct box plot pada tingkatan 4. Alright. Pada tingkatan 5, kita akan tengok measures of dispersion. Kita kaitkan box plot kepada types of distribution. So, sekiranya begini, kalau kamu tengok, dia asymmetrical. Semuanya berada di tengah-tengah. Hujung ini kita panggil sebagai whiskers. So, I'm going to refer this as whiskers. So, whiskers yang sama, we call as symmetric distribution. So, begini, kalau kamu tengok, dia ada similarities kepada graf kita yang kita belajar sebelum ni, last week. Bentuk dia lebih kurang macam tu. Okay. So, graf yang bentuk begini, this is actually, kita tengok sebelah ini. Yang data ni, which is on the left. So, this is left skewed distribution. Okay, so right skewed distribution, of course, bahagian yang landai itu adalah on the right. So, this area landai, so this is what we call as right skewed distribution. So, box plot, there are 3 types of distribution: symmetric, left skewed distribution, and right skewed distribution. So kita akan tengok, kita akan construct box plot, and then based on this distribution kita akan interpret. Alright, let's look at example 1. Example 1, the ogive on the right shows the masses in grams of 90 star fruits. So, we have masses of star fruits. Okay. So, we have to construct a box plot based on the ogive. So, dalam box plot, there's a few things kita kena identify dahulu lah. First, adalah our minimum value. So, kita kena ada maximum value. Third, kita perlu tahu our first quartile. Fourth, our median. Fifth is our third quartile. Okay. So, 5 benda kita kena tahu untuk kita construct box plot. Jadi, dalam graf ini, dia telah positionkan our quartiles. So, minimum value, you can just take from here. Tengok kita punya ogive. So, titik paling minimum, mass dia adalah 80. Okay. Although dia punya cumulative frequency adalah 0, but still kita assume this will be our minimum value. So, minimum value is 80. Alright, hence, maximum value will be the highest point of our ogive. So which is 150. Okay. So once again, kita recap sikit about our quartiles. So quartile, kita ambil daripada 1/4 of our total cumulative frequency, which is 90 in this case. So mana datang 90, our highest point pergi kepada cumulative frequency, itu 90. So here you divide by 4. So you will get 22 here. Okay, 22. So 22, take it, 22 pergi kepada cumulative frequency 22, and then we take the value of mass here, which is 116. So first quartile here will be 116, 116. So median should be 1/2 times 90. So which will give you 45. Okay, 45. So kita ambil, kita punya kat sini 45. So the value of median should be 123. And finally, third quartile is actually 3/4 times 90. So 3/4 times 90. So the value of mass here is 128. Okay. So that is how we find our quartiles. Okay, so with these values, kita akan construct kita punya box plot. So box plot must be drawn on a Cartesian plane. Okay. Not exactly Cartesian plane, on a grid. Okay, so that we can see macam mana dia punya distribution. Okay, so saya nak buat satu shortcut. I'm gonna draw my box dekat sini, atas ni. Okay, so I know already minimum value here. So teacher akan lukis di sini. Okay, so I'm gonna use this. So minimum value titik sini. And then our maximum value. So I'm gonna put one dot here. First quartile is 116. So daripada graph ni 116. So just use the grid. So I will get here. This is my first quartile. And then my third quartile is here. So jadi bila buat box, saya akan buat satu garisan here. And then satu garisan here. Alright, and then we assume kita ada satu box. Okay, not that nice. Make it nice. Okay. And then kita tengok median, which is in the middle here. Okay. So this is our median. So kita tengoklah. So when you bandingkan, see, it's easy. But this is a shortcut. If the question asks you to draw, then make sure you draw it on the grids. Okay, kenapa kena ada grid? It is so that we can know the distribution. Because here, the question will continue with, hence, state the distribution shape of the data. Okay, so if you see the data, kita punya whiskers, dia punya length tidak sama. So this cannot be done as symmetric distribution. Okay, so whiskers kita on the left is longer than on the right. Jadi bila left longer, so meaning dia adalah left skewed distribution. So the answer for B will be left skewed distribution. Okay, so that is for example 1. Straightforward, you draw your box plot and from here kita bandingkan either it is symmetric, left skewed or right skewed. So obviously here this is a left skewed distribution. Okay, so kita continue kepada learning standard yang kedua. So the next learning standard, we have to compare and interpret two or more sets of group data based on measures of dispersion, hence make conclusion. So measures of dispersion here, we are referring to the calculation that we did. Okay, so here means mean, kita punya variance, and also our standard deviation. Okay, sometimes we can also refer to our range. Okay, ataupun our interquartile range. Okay, so these 4 things that we can get from a group data. Alright, so example 2. A botanist sowed, tanam 40 samples of hibiscus seeds using 2 different hybrids, A and B. So we have two set of data. It's not different data. It's the same type of data, but there are 2 sets. Okay, A and B. The diameters of both hybrids are measured under close guard to develop an extra large hibiscus. So the following frequency table here shows the diameters of petals for hybrid A and B. So this is the table given. So based on the mean and standard deviation, so we have 2 distribution. Determine which hybrid produces larger and more consistent petals. So we have to justify our answer. So we have to calculate mean and standard deviation each for hybrid A and hybrid B. So hopefully from our last class, we did this, how to measure mean. So mean should be the sum of frequency times x. This is referring to midpoint. Midpoint of each class divided by sum of frequency. And the formula for standard deviation is square root sum of f(x), here again refers to the midpoint, square divided by sum of f minus mean square. Okay, so your calculation, you can do it on your own. So I suggest for you to do a table for all these values. Okay, so answers here, since our learning standard is we have to interpret. Okay, we are comparing when we interpret. So the answers after calculation, hybrid A has mean 14.35. Hybrid B 14.1. Standard deviation for hybrid A is 0.64. Standard deviation for hybrid B is 0.7. So the question initially wants, determine which hybrid produces larger and more consistent petals. So bila dia cakap pasal mean and standard deviation, mean is our average. Okay, secara purata. So which hybrid produces larger, this is actually dia nak kamu refer kepada mean. Sebab secara purata, mana satu hybrid yang mempunyai diameter petals yang lebih besar. Okay, bila dia cakap pasal consistency, and thus this refers to standard deviation. Why? We have learned this in Form 4. Standard deviation will give us the consistency. If we have learned this, if we have a low standard deviation, okay, it means the data is consistent. What does it mean by consistent? Consistent, it is more towards the mean. Okay, most of the data is on the mean. Okay, nearby the mean. So kita panggil dia sebagai in Form 4, the wording is the data is dispersed close to the mean. So data tu consistent. So if you have a high standard deviation, so the data is dispersed. Okay, dia maksudnya dia tidak konsisten, so dia dispersed far from the mean. Okay, dia lebih jauh sikit daripada mean lah, maksudnya dia tidak konsisten. Okay, low, consistent, high, dispersed. Okay, so jadi mana satu yang lebih besar? Secara purata, we say that hybrid A, okay, in average has a larger diameter of petals. Okay, in terms of consistency, okay, which one has more consistent petals? So kita akan refer kepada low standard deviation. So hybrid A, which is lower, will have a more consistent petals. Okay, so hybrid A produces a larger petals because the mean is larger than hybrid B. And the smaller standard deviation, which is 0.64, shows that the diameter of the petals is more consistent. So hybrid A lah the answer. Okay, jadi hybrid A ni dah lah kelopak dia besar dan dia konsisten. Kebanyakan bunga dia memang kelopaknya besar. Begitu Hybrid B, kelopaknya lebih kecil dan dalam satu bunga tu ataupun dalam satu tumbuhan tu, bila kita tengok dia punya bunga-bunga, kelopak dia tidaklah sekonsisten hybrid A. Okay, so kita akan refer kepada hybrid A lah to answer the question. Alright, so this is how we interpret measures of dispersion. So we use our mean, we use our standard deviation. Okay, continue with the third learning standard, which will be our last learning standard for today. Learning standard, we are solving problems involving measures of dispersion for group data. Okay, so here we have learned in this topic, okay, how to draw histogram, frequency polygon, and ogive. Okay, for the first part. Second part, we learn how to calculate variance and standard deviation for group data. And then earlier just now, we learned about distribution in Boxplot. Okay, so we are going to take all these things and then we are going to solve some problems. Okay, so example 3. A survey on the duration of time in hours spent by customers to buy goods in a supermarket is carried out. So masa untuk pergi shopping. Okay, the results of the survey are shown in the ogive on the right. So minimum value kita is 0.45 hours. So 0.45 hours, and then the maximum is 2.95 hours. And then total customer kita ada 80. Okay, so first the question, construct a frequency table for the time taken by the customers to buy goods in the supermarket using the classes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 classes. So frequency table is simple. Apa yang dia ada adalah classes. And then the second is dia akan ada frequency. That's it. That is frequency table. So here saya dah buat sketching frequency table. So kita punya class which is going to be time in hours. And then we have frequency. Okay. So ogive given to you is actually a frequency, not an ogive is actually a cumulative frequency. Okay. So kalau kita pergi kepada cumulative frequency, kena ingat balik macam mana kita construct ogive. Okay. Ogive kita akan guna upper boundary. Okay. So kita tengok ni kelas kita sebelum ni. Oh, not this one. Yes. Alright. So ogive, we have learned here. Ogive, you're going to use upper boundary. Jadi, kita refer kepada kita punya ogive. This is actually my upper boundary. Okay. So 0.45 mempunyai frekuensi 0. Tapi 0.45 untuk kelas ni adalah lower boundary, bukan upper. Ini upper boundary dia adalah 0.95. Okay. So contohlah teacher letak kat sini upper boundary. Kita tambah lagi satu column. Okay. So from the classes, kita tengok. Classes yang pertama, upper boundary is actually 0.95. Okay. Kelas kedua is 1.45. Kelas ketiga, 1.95. The fourth class, 2.45. And finally, 2.95. Okay. So you have to look at these points untuk menentukan dia punya cumulative frequency. Okay, let's look. 0.95. 0.95. Dia akan pergi kepada point ini. Which is, so kalau kat situ, tengok so satu grid adalah berapa ni? Satu grid adalah 2. Sebab tengah-tengah ni 10. So this is actually 6. 6. Saya letak dulu 6. Okay. And then next is 1.45. 1.45 is actually 22. 22. And then 1.95 is kat sini 50. So it is actually 54. Okay. And then 2.45 sini, it is actually 70. And 2.95, okay, finally dia akan atas sekali, which is going to be 80. Okay. Alright. So what does this tell me? This is actually not the frequency. This is actually the cumulative frequency. Okay, kamu kena ingat. Macam mana kita buat cumulative frequency? Okay. Cumulative frequency, kita tengok, kita buat zigzag. Okay. So, contohlah. Supaya familiar kan kepada anda ni cumulative frequency. So, the first one, dia tak berubah. Dia betul sama. 6. Okay. So, the first class is actually 6. So, the second one, kalau 22 ni, kamu tengok sini kita punya 22. Untuk kelas yang kedua, which is di antara 0.95 to 1.45, dia refer kepada garisan ini saja. So, garisan ini is practically kita punya frekuensi di sini. Alright. So, bila frekuensi kat sini, saya akan ambil 22. Sebab 22 is from 0 to 22. Akan minus kepada 0 hingga 6. Okay, 6 here. 22 here. Sebab teacher nak dapatkan frekuensi kelas yang kedua. Alright. So, kat sini, 22, kita akan minuskan dengan 6. Okay. So, dia akan jadi 16. Alright. And then, 54. Okay, kita ada 54. Untuk third class kita, which is 1.95, kita punya third class. So, saya nak kat sini je. So, saya nak ni je. Jadi, apa yang teacher buat adalah, teacher ambil ni 54. Teacher akan minuskan dengan 22. Sebab ni 54, teacher akan tolakkan dengan yang bawah ni, 22. So, kalau tengok 54, dia akan minus dengan 22. So, tadi 22 minus 6 tu dapat sini. So, dia akan tolak yang ke atas. Bukannya tolak initially. So, 54 minus 22, you will get 32. And then, yang kelas keempat is 70 minus 54. 70 minus 54 is 16. And then lastly, 80 akan minus dengan 70. It's going to give you 10. So, that is my frequency. Okay. So, kita macam mana nak baca adalah first, kamu kena tetapkan boundary. Upper boundary. And then from upper boundary, you read the ogive. Untuk tahu kita punya cumulative frequency. Barulah you can analyze the cumulative frequency. From there, you extract your frequency. Kita tolak dengan yang atas. Kenapa 6 tak tolak apa-apa? Sebab there is nothing before. Nothing before, it means that upper boundary yang sebelum ni mempunyai frekuensi kosong. Jadi 6 tolak kosong sebenarnya. Okay. Alright. Itu kita punya frequency table. So the question next, dia akan suruh hence we estimate the mean and standard deviation of the data. So here, of course, kita dah belajar how to calculate mean and standard deviation. So, teacher akan salin balik. Kita punya frequency is 6, 16, 32, 16 and 10. Okay. So, mean nak cari adalah the sum of fx divided by the sum of f. Standard deviation ataupun variance lah. Variance is actually the sum of fx square divided by the sum of f minus mean square. Okay, so the formula should be in your head already. Okay, midpoint. So midpoint is based on our class. Okay. 0.5, 0.6, 7, 8, 9. So, 5, 6, 7. So, 0.7. And then next will be 1.2, 1.7, 2.2, and 2.7. So, fx, just multiply. The first one is 6 times 0.7. You will get 4.2. Next is 16 times 1.2. Get 19.2. Okay, next 32 times 1.7, 54.4. The fourth one, 16 times 2.2, 35.2. And lastly, 10 times 2.7 is 27. Okay, so x square, we're going to refer to our midpoint. We're going to square it. So 0.7 square, 0.49. 1.2 square is 1.44. 1.7 square is 2.89. 2.2 square is 4.84. And last, 2.7 square is 7.29. Okay, and then fx square, kita akan darab frekuensi dengan x square. Bukannya kita ambil fx ni kita squarekan. No, fx square kita akan ambil f and then multiply with x square. So 6 times 0.49, you will get 2.94. Okay, next 16 times 1.44, 23.04. Then continue 92.48, and then 77.44, and then last 72.9. Okay, so based on our formula, mean kita kena ada sum of fx. So tengok fx, kita kena tambah everything here. Okay, you add everything here. So sum of fx, you will get 140. Tambah So 4.2 plus 19.2 plus 54.4 plus 35.2 plus 27. And then over you divide by sum of f. So f here also kita kena tambah, totalkan everything. So sum of f here, you will get 80. You can use your calculator. Okay, so substitute the values that you get into the formula. So sum of fx is 140. Divide by 80. So your mean will be 1.75. Okay, and then let's look at the formula for variance. So variance, we have sum of fx square. So sum of this. So jadi ini kita kena tambah. So you will get 268.8. Okay, tambah. And then sum of f, we can use this. And then mean square, kita akan use the calculation of mean kita dapat tadi. Okay, so you will get, sebab kita nak calculate adalah standard deviation. So, square root sum of fx square 268.8 divide by 80 minus dengan mean square 1.75 square. Okay, so use your calculator. Make sure you calculate ni, you masukkan nilai ni everything. So if you want to do it one by one, maksudnya 268.8 you divide by 80 dulu. And then you tulis. It's fine, tapi make sure you buat dalam 6 decimal place dahulu. Okay, buat in 6 decimal place. And then minus 1.75 square, kamu tulis, put it as 6 decimal place. Okay, so but this is not your final answer. Okay, so you have to, kalau nak buat sekali harung, boleh. Masukkan nilai ni semua sekali dalam satu calculator. And then you equalkan everything together. So you should get 0.55 after rounding off to 2 decimal place. Okay. So we have answered the second question, which is we have to estimate the mean and standard deviation of the data. So done. So dekat ini solving problems here, we are not involving any two set of data, just one set of data, but solving problem can be that you have to analyze two sets of data. Okay, solving problems can be any type of question as long as you have learned before it. Okay, sebab standard deviation sebelum ni kita dah belajar how to interpret and analyze two set of data. Okay, ataupun tiba-tiba dalam soalan ni dia boleh selitkan, okay, construct a box plot, hence determine the type of distribution. Also can, because it is solving problems. Okay, so here dia hanya nak uji kamu. In example 3 is how well you understand your ogive. Okay, sebab kita belajar from frequency table into ogive. Okay, now the question, give you ogive, you have to come up with the frequency table. So dia patah balik. Okay, so that is the last learning standard for the day. So that's it lah. Okay, as a recap ataupun a summary, we have learned 3 learning standard. First, you should be able by now to construct and interpret box plot. So 3 types of distribution. How to construct box plot? We have 5 values that you have to find before constructing a box plot. Okay, and then kalau dia dalam soalan tak minta kamu construct, but you want to know the distribution without constructing, then you can do a sketch like this. Okay, from here boleh nampak sudah. And then we continue with the second learning standard for the day, which is we're comparing 2 sets of group data using measures of dispersion. So here kita recap balik about low standard deviation is a consistent data and high standard deviation is a dispersed data. Okay, dispersed away from the mean. Okay, and then lastly kita bagi learning standard solving problems. So please keep in mind, solving problems can be any type of questions that covers the learning standards before yang kita dah belajar. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you.